trolley winged out?
I'm a little, actually. I thought about it, like, this was a mistake.
You were so pumped on it.
Yeah, I'm not going to enjoy everyone in there. That since I'm all set up in here.
talking about the midterms.
Oh.
Okay. Well, it started off talking about prayer before city.
This better go fast.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
It's been a day.
It's been a day. Just keeps getting better.
I'm sorry.
Lucky you. Seen more of you lately than I have for a long time.
I know. You have the next time too.
Oh, yeah? You
Yeah.
can be out next time too?
Yeah.
Ah.
I guess he's at a conference.
Oh, got it. Yay.
So where's one? Not here.
Not here, he's hunting.
Not here.
This time. Did you find your name?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh. How are you? Good. Good. It was great. He said he can't believe he hasn't been able to breathe with all this time.
Did he have DD accepted?
He had vocal cords refused shut. Because he had the tube in his throat for 4 months, for several
Always
months,
causes
not 4
trouble,
months,
yeah.
but several months. And it caused scar tissue to grow, and his diabetes causes more scar tissue. So he didn't realize he couldn't breathe.
No.
Because it takes so long.
It would be the night before
They cut out,
Thanksgiving. We're not gonna do
last
that.
month they cut out
Nice.
the left side, this time they cut out the right side, and they made an actual hole.
We don't have to do it
Yeah, it was
tomorrow.
like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I can breathe.
That's
No,
so
no
good.
So good.
Awesome.
It's so good.
Always,
I've been able to avoid it completely so far. Issue with
Tonsils that like always were big, like half my family said when I got my tonsils removed in my they were like 85%.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just like, wow.
Exactly.
What do
You
you
know
mean?
exactly what he's
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
All over that
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah. He's doing good. I'm very. Yes. Yeah. Got too excited to eat some toast. And I'm like, dude,
You're like,
stop food. Stop food.
Ouch, now.
Yogurt. We stopped and got him yogurt and applesauce and everything. And no, he eats toast.
Every few weeks.
So then I gave him some Tylenol before I left. But I just checked on him. His sugar's like through the roof, but I was there. I had gotten a caramel ribbon crunch from Starbucks, which is like crazy busy at the he wanted it, so he drank one, so I got him another one, got me another one.
Yeah.
He drank his and mine. And I'm like, and the sugar's up.
It's go down, right?
Yeah, eventually.
Okay.
It was good though. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Of course.
Yep. No, just for this one.
Okay.
Yeah, just for this one because they didn't have as much on the shop. So yeah, it's just this. That'd be nice though, right? Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed. Be all right with me. How you doing, Lauren?
Do some demolition and removal.
when we talked about last council meeting,
You just never went in.
Man, that was,
yeah, and somebody had like settings had been changed
So long for you to.
in here, like the TVs had don't normally use sound and comes with speakers and stuff, and somebody had made it all through the.
What's wrong with this?
And Juan was sitting over there so stressed, not able to figure it out, so
yeah,
sorry
I was
about
like,
that.
I mean, I've done Zoom so many times and all over the world, never had a problem.
Yeah.
And I literally could only catch about every other word, and then the words I could hear were just garbled. It was like, I'm trying to figure out, I've got the schedule, I know what you're doing, but I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to talk, and it was like,
I'm sorry.
it was frustrating,
Yeah,
but I understand.
Juan was so stressed, I think, over there. So,
Like,
we're sorry.
it's okay, things happen.
Here we are. I mean, we know.
We get by.
He came in
Sounds
the
like I
same
don't
place.
have, I didn't get a committee assignment just because I couldn't hear.
Well, we have one for
Well, and it also says regular.
Midvale City
Yeah,
Music.
but that is also not right.
Oh, well.
Uh,
For a lively bunch.
Anyhow, it was really hard to figure out who was saying what.
That's so strange. I mean, when we were all home, it was fine.
Apparently the settings were wrong. And she just told me the TVs were giving feedback on everything,
Oh, wow.
Like really, really close.
but they didn't figure it out.
I don't know why I'm fairly excited.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting trying to figure out what you guys were doing. I could see you and I kind of knew what was going on. But I'm guessing when I'm supposed to talk or what I'm supposed to vote or what I'm doing.
She's crazy, but leave her alone.
Show up. I can't hear you.
Well, I tried.
I think maybe we should,
Oh,
if I had to do that, I'd probably
now we gotta wander around the back too. You really are gonna get me in trouble, you know that, right?
I've done it all over Europe and not had any trouble. This is the first time I've ever had any trouble.
at your daughter's house. We're in.
What?
Denver, Meridian.
No, why? Nowhere. No, not yet, but
I
she
haven't,
has to.
I'm not committing yet.
Has to.
Apparently.
Has to.
Did he put you up to that? Oh, Dustin's relentless lately. I'm like, what is going on? I have time. I have time to just like, come.
No, I've just.
This one's so
Well, and you know, I had more fun this last year doing it and like getting to find the people and because I wanted to do this for it. But apparently Dustin said I'm inviting myself to your guys' Thanksgiving thing.
She's in charge, so there you go.
Do you need me to bring anything or what can I do? So, we were told there was a pie contest, and I am epically terrified of making pies. I'm a scratch baker, and so I'm afraid to crust, but everybody's like, this really is, I'm a non-scratch baker.
like there
And
was.
I'm ridiculously OCD. Like, my husband hates to cook with me.
Cheaper just to get a new judge or a new city councilman
Yeah.
than pay for bulletproof stuff. There's always somebody
I've
that
never
will
made one, that's the one thing I haven't done.
Life insurance.
I do like cakes and stuff like
have a
that,
little
so.
No, but I think like the city gets money.
I'll bring something. Do you want sides or anything, or? I'm guessing like the ones over. My brother and I were talking about this the other day. When we got to Thanksgiving breakfast, almost 20 years ago, I was not. And like the first time he came over to my place.
It's 6:31 if we can,
I literally made grilled cheese at tomato soup.
are we ready on your end? When we're ready? Okay.
Extent of my order. I should show Thanksgiving with grilled cheese and.
Matthew, hurry it up back there.
Juan, we really like you when you're here.
You full name? Full
time. All right. Oh, Councilman Sperry, you snuck in. Glad you made it. Okay, it is 6:33. I'll call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Rory, will you call roll?
Yes. Councilmember Glover,
Here.
Gettle,
Here.
Sperry,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
and Robinson.
Here.
Thank you. All right, Unified Fire Report. We will hear from Chief Larson. Where?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. Good evening, council members. It's good to be with you today. First off, I think I would like to go over the quarterly report. This is the third quarter. I wanted to have this for you last month, but we didn't quite get the stats done in time. So this is the report from July through the end of September. If you look at the top left, it gives the total incidents for that quarter, those that were emergent, and the percentage of emergent. I think the telling statistic there is the 4-year monthly comparison. If you look for July, we had a pretty good increase for the number of calls. And then for August and September, it stayed fairly flat, but increased a little bit in August and stayed about the same in September as the previous years. Back to the left, on the call type, the top fire dispatches, it lists the top type of fire calls we received for that quarter. Natural vegetation was number 8, and of course, July 4th and 24th, I'm sure that's what drove that number quite a bit. The top EMS dispatches, responder request and sick person were the top 2. Now, responder request, that's kind of an anomaly right now. I was talking to Chief Dern about this, and if a final disposition isn't marked on the report, then the reporting software just throws it into one category of responder request. So that's something that we're trying to work with Intera, the software company that kind of pulls these stats together. My suspicion is that the top 2 that it's showing there, sick person falls, is probably going to be the ones that it throws most of those into, but we'll have to wait and see. But just for now, just keep in mind that lists the total number of EMS dispatches in those categories. The top other dispatches, false alarm and false call, those are 27. Seems to be the top number of other dispatches. That's something we're trying to rectify with a new inspection program that we have that helps us monitor the fire alarm testing for buildings that have fire alarm systems. We can be notified. I mean, it's real time. We could look on it today and see what the status of the testing of some of the alarm systems is for that particular month. So it's something that we're working with on another company to try and get some of those alarm systems repaired as soon as possible. And then incoming units down at the bottom left, the top engine and truck responses. Now keep in mind this is units, so that means an engine in a truck. It's not just the total responses. And it lists that number there, and then same with the top ambulance responses. The emergent total time, the 50th percentile, that means 50% of the time from dispatch to arrival, we were there within 4 minutes and 28 seconds. The 90th percentile means that from 50 to 90%, so basically 40% of the remaining, we were there within 7 minutes and 13 seconds, if that makes sense. Okay, next page. And again, this chart, you've seen this before. This just kind of locates where those calls came in. The fire calls are in red, and then the medical, which are the greatest number of calls, is kind of that light, I guess, brownish color. I'm a little bit colorblind, but I think that's the one it is. Next page. And again, the call density. This heat map, I think, is very telling. It shows where the vast majority of the calls occur. The darker the color, the higher number of calls we responded to in those areas. And you can see the 7200 South Corridor is quite a hot spot for a number of calls there. That's the quarterly report for the third quarter. Any questions?
Chief, I have one sort of question for you. It's maybe for UFA generally. When developments come and sort of ask, you know, to sort of sign off or whatever, I would like it if UFA could maybe take an approach where they sort of think of the sort of long-term impacts on the city as far as parking. About a month ago, we had a development come in that I drove by where this property was going to be over by Hillcrest, and I think they'll probably red curb the area on the road because it'll be a fire lane.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully there's never a fire there, right? But you know, if there's a fire there every 10 years, it seems very unfortunate for the citizens that are going to be living there and the citizens that live around, that parking is just removed in the off chance that maybe fire will come. And so I would like it if you could pass along UFA to like not necessarily think, to me that's a short term, quick, someone looked at it and went, yeah, we can do this if we do this, and it'll hurt our city forever for as long as that building's there now. So, you know, I'd like them to partner with us a little bit better on those approvals so we don't lose out on, you know, I think if there was those 4 or 5 spots on the road, that would substantially make that better for the current citizens and even the ones that are there. So you can just
Sure.
pass that along because it's a little disappointing that was the approval plan. And I think that's also maybe what's going on with MODA, because the south-facing part of MODA is all red curbs, but there's plenty of space for people to park along there. But it's probably red curbed for fire purposes. And so instead, we have a bunch of people parking in the neighborhood when like 20 cars could fit along there. And now we've substantially kind of harmed people forever because UFA kind of made that choice. So if you can pass that along, I think, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but I would imagine most, you know, other council members would like that. It's not like rejecting projects, it's just how do we not necessarily get rid of what I would call kind of common sense parking that's already there.
Sure. You bring up a really good point, and I'd be really happy to sit down with you sometime and kind of explain the plan review process that UFA goes through when these developments come in. There is a minimum standard for street width for emergency access, and that's all we can require is that minimum width for emergency access. And we share your concern with parking. So I'm not sure what the solution is. I know on the state legislative level, there are some things going on there. I don't know how that's going to pan out, but I'd be more than happy to talk with you about those. One thing I think is important to keep in mind with a lot of these developments, the multifamily residential buildings that are going to be apartments and those type of things have a fire sprinkler system in them, which are very, very effective. National statistics show them to be just phenomenal. It'll either put the fire out or keep it in check till we get there and allow the residents to get out. So that is one big thing in the favor for a lot of these larger developments. Some departments around the country have allowed a narrowing of access roads. Because of that, I don't see that happening in Utah, but that's not to say that there still won't be a problem with parking. But I don't know if there's a really good answer to that, but I'd be more than happy to talk more in depth on that issue with you.
Okay. Juan, could you go back 2 slides? Chief, I've got a question for you here. So I'm looking at, I'll just take the top engine and truck responses. Where
Yes.
It shows 125s at 544 and 126 at 435. And then it shows Cottonwood Heights. These are just calls into Midvale. So I'm thinking if I want a more relaxing job, I probably want to be out of 126 instead of 125. But that doesn't mean that 126 wasn't called into. Is this capturing calls that they were out on? If they were called into Cottonwood Heights, is that, if 126 was called out into Cottonwood Heights, is that captured on here? Or is it just Midvale
I
specific?
don't believe so, Mayor. I think that's just calls into Midvale.
That would make sense.
I'll get a clarification on that, but I think that's the case. I know reports we used to have showed the number of times Midvale units responded to other areas. But let me get clarification on that, but I believe that is the case.
Okay. The other thing I was thinking on this, it'd be interesting to see a comparison on the emergent percent, similar to how we have the 4-year monthly comparison of is 38% of calls being emergent. Is that what we expect, or if we saw a spike that we were getting non-emergent calls, or?
Yeah. I don't know if I have a really good answer for you, and I'm not going to just kind of give my guess. I'd rather not do that.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot right now, just mostly it'd be interesting in the future.
No, let me talk to Chief Dern and see if I can get a clear answer on that one for you. Will that work?
That works great.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Chief, not to pile on, but one of the things that I've mentioned in the past is trying to drill down on that emergent number and find out what the total time is for those specifically, just the emergent calls. Because, not that it isn't emergent to someone, but, if it takes 7 minutes to get to the cat in the tree call, that's different than 7 minutes to get to the person who needs critical care. So I don't know if there's any way to drill that number down a little bit and see, I'm assuming, based on the kind of call that comes in, that's also the response time. They'll rush to someone, who's having a medical emergency versus someone who says they just need some help with the cat.
So I think what you're asking for is, like, on the 90th percentile, what type of calls were the majority of those?
Or if you could just, since there are 409 calls that were deemed emergent, if there's just a way to, break those 409 down into that 50 and 90th percentile, just to give us an idea of, if I'm calling saying I'm having a fatal heart attack, did it take 4 minutes to get there or 7 on average?
Let me check with the individuals that run the report, and I'll find out for you.
Okay. And if they want to contact me, I can explain that maybe better to them.
Okay.
I tried my best here.
I think I understand what you're asking.
If you have any questions, you can always email me.
One thing to keep in mind on our standards of cover study, our data collection and analytics is in its infancy, and it's just going to keep getting better. And so these kind of questions really help out. It really gives us an idea of what's important to our councils and what kind of information can be helpful. So thank you for the questions.
Thanks, Chief.
I do have just a few more things, if that's okay. I'll go through these really quickly. A week ago Monday, we swore in 7 new paramedics, which are now out in the field. That's really going to help our paramedic load there. Live fire training, most of our crews have been through some live fire training. They go out to the drill tower, they actually set up fires and scenarios, and they respond to it. I talked about this a little bit last month, but you can visit our Facebook website to view photos of the live fire training exercise if you'd like. And Station 125 is really close. The plan is for a final certificate of occupancy on the 17th. They have a temporary seal right now, which means they're moving in furniture and those type of things and equipment. The plan is right now, and I say this with a caveat, this depends on the construction company and how they kind of wrap things up. But the plan is to move the crew in the end of this month and to plan an open house sometime the first part of December. So really excited about it. Mayor, I think it was you mentioned, somebody mentioned they really like the birdhouse in the back by the park.
Yes, very nice birdhouse.
Yeah, it's the old Midvale siren that they use for the volunteers that's back there. So the park, everything's looking really nice, so we're really excited about that. Just real quickly, with Thanksgiving coming up, I want to mention this for our citizens that might be listening in. With Thanksgiving just around the corner, it's important to remember to always be alert when prepping meals in the kitchen. The leading cause of fires in the United States and locally here in the state of Utah and here in Midvale are fires in the kitchen. Those are caused by unattended cooking on or near the stove. So a couple of quick things. If you're sleepy or have consumed alcohol, don't use the stove or stovetop. Stay in the kitchen while you're frying, broiling, grilling. Or if you have food in the oven, if you leave the kitchen for even a short period of time, turn off the stove. If you're simmering, baking, or roasting, check it regularly and remain in the home while the food is cooking. Use a timer and keep anything that can catch fire away from the stove, such as oven mitts and paper towels and food packaging, those type of things. And it's really important to keep the lids near the counter, because if a pan starts on fire, the easiest way to extinguish it is grab the lid, put it over the pan, and take it off the heat. The lid smothers it, it protects your hand while you put it over it. It smothers the fire, you take it from the heat, and it's taken care of. So some important things to remember. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, moving on to our public comments portion of the agenda. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for a public hearing on the agenda tonight may come forward to the microphone and state their name for the record. Do we have any public comments? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on to my mayor report. As Chief Larson said, really excited for Station 125 to be almost completed. It's been great to see the progress happening on that, and the park being completed there, and our fancy birdhouse, as Chief said, that it has been commented to me that is actually I think a really interesting piece that we were able to save and have it there. That siren as part of the future of the station. Just to give you all an update on Unified Police, so this Thursday, the cost control piece, I had mentioned that went, they wanted it to go to the Finance Committee, so we did the Finance Committee meeting, and this is the board setting up a number up front, and so that will go back to the UPD board this Thursday, and then from my understanding, there will not be a vote, but because it's an interlocal, then it will go back to communities, and they are supposed to take that month before it goes back to the board for a final vote. on that. But so far, that looks like it's moving in the right direction. I think I may have updated on this 2 weeks ago. But it going to the Finance Committee, I think, was really helpful and definitely got some folks on board, I think, who weren't all the way there yet. The other one is the organizational review. So we did receive a scope of work from the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the IACP. So we received that the other day, and beginning of next week, we are holding our second organizational review committee that I'm the chair of. To meet with this committee, we'll be meeting with the IACP to go over this scope of work, provide feedback before they actually start that process. Part of this showed that they would have not the completed report, but most of it completed, assuming that we actually fully get this started here pretty quickly, that they would have it mostly completed by May, so we could help use that in the budgeting process, and then they would give us a final version in the summer. But they think they can have pretty much everything we would need by May, if I'm remembering correctly. Thirdly, we got word, we've known this was coming, but this morning a draft bill was released in the legislature that will be reviewed in committee tomorrow. So as I've been involved with this work group that has been looking at UPD's role with the county sheriff's office and how that overlaps. And so in that, there's been this conversation of that we knew that the legislature, Representative Jordan Tusher was likely to present a bill to remove the sheriff as the CEO of UPD. We were waiting to see what this bill was going to look like. Again, this has been kind of a hot topic in that work group. That bill was released today, and it does exactly that. It says that if I'm stating anything, Matt, please let me know. But that any sheriff in a county of the first class could not be in charge of any other agency, is the way that it's worded. There's some other language in there about not being able to use county funds for non-county-wide services. And so that bill will be in committee tomorrow. We are going to wait to see how that comes out of committee, if any changes are made. After that, we will want input from all of you about if we take a stance on that bill or what that looks like. So just look out for that after it goes through committee tomorrow. We'll be reaching out. Any questions on that? Okay. Lastly, it's the Honorable Judge Garner is leaving us to go start a judgeship. Lisa, I just have to thank you. I have to make sure that I do this. It's your last council meeting with us. This is a pretty intimidating role to step into. Coming and sitting up here can be intimidating, and you have just been so incredibly welcoming. Any time up here is I don't know what I am doing, and I can lean over to you and say, what am I supposed to do right now? And you are always there for it. I just so appreciate you. I've appreciated getting to know you, your commitment to our residents, your commitment to, I think, justice, really. You are just going to be a fantastic judge, and the people of Draper are so lucky to have you, and we're really going to miss you here. With that, Councilman Glover.
I'd just like to echo what the mayor said, Lisa. We will miss you, and thank you for your friendship and helping us here at Midvale City. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Councilmember Gettle.
Thanks, Mayor. A couple things. One, I'll save Lisa for last. I'm still working up to accepting that that's a reality. But number one, in the Animal Services Committee, they have an idea to open up a new facility, a new adoption center / animal care center, which is very much needed in Salt Lake County. The way that they're planning on funding this is through ARPA funds. They're going to vote on this with the county council next week. So it might be something, if you're interested in emailing or talking to county council members, it's pretty up in the air at this point whether that's going to fly or not. I know 2 or 3 council members who are on board with it. Don't know where the others stand, but it seems to be a very urgent need. They're actually down a veterinarian as well, countywide, so, you know, there's just a very large backlog of care for animals, which we have unfortunately seen here in Midvale recently. So that's something important. On that line, also, I spoke to County Council member Amy Winder Newton this weekend, and she didn't used to have much of Midvale. Now she does have some of Midvale, 2 of my precincts in my council district. So anyway, she wanted to come to a workshop and talk to us about some of her plans that may impact Midvale. I let her know that it might be not enough time to get her on for our next meeting in December, but maybe perhaps at the beginning of the year. And she is perfectly fine with either one of those. So, Lisa. We are definitely going to miss Lisa, as everyone probably has already told her. Personally, you know, I've sat next to her for 5 years, and, you know, as the mayor said, it's pretty intimidating to be elected to office and then come up here right after being sworn in to your first council meeting and not really knowing what's happening. So Lisa has always been a very professional friend. She's become, I would consider Lisa one of my best friends here in Midvale City and beyond. And I'm so happy for her and the new role. It's hard to be not a little bit sad to see her go. But she's been the best counsel possible for me personally, professionally, and for the city as a whole. And I don't need to say it again, but I will. We're going to miss you. Good luck. Draper's great. They're so lucky to have you, and I know you're going to make a wonderful judge. So thank you. That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Sperry.
So since last meeting, I had the opportunity to go with the Canyons Education Foundation and deliver some checks to teachers that were granted innovation grants. That was pretty awesome. I mean, we delivered just a little under $100,000. I guess there's one more tomorrow at the ribbon cutting that's happening. So if you're there, but so that was a cool experience to go into the schools and reward these teachers for looking for ways that they are thinking outside the box and providing opportunities to the kids in their class to learn more and have some hands-on experience in again, innovating the way that they're teaching. Lisa, again, it's been great getting to know you. You know, it's not over. You know, I'll still call you at times, I'm sure. You know, if you're not sure what to do on a case, you can call me and I'll be like, well, that's too bad. You make the decision now, so. No, it's been great. I mean, I think all the way back to, you know, when we were bringing you on and you coming over from the other firm and it seems so long ago now, but it's been fantastic to have you here and wish you luck, so.
Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, I just want to obviously sort of echo what people are saying. And maybe what some people don't realize was I graduated from law school the year I decided to run. And so while I was doing my campaign, I was studying for the bar, and then, which was, Dessa knows, was a very emotional experience for me. And you know, that you kind of get notice of passing the bar in the fall. I get sworn in, you know, 3 months later. And so she's been a mentor to me. I've called her on many professional things unrelated to the city. And she's always been very kind, very giving. I think she is one of the smartest attorneys in our state. And I absolutely hate Draper City because of that. Though, you know, they have their own challenges, probably very different than Midvale's. They have a little bit wealthier base. I don't know how much you'll deal with maybe you know, different things, but I'm sure you'll be just as valuable there as you are here, and we'll definitely miss you. I'll miss you, not just from the city, but, you know, from that. I still consider you a mentor, so I appreciate you. That's all.
Councilmember Robinson?
Thank you. I too just want to echo everything everyone has said about Lisa, but then also add my gratitude for being such a good friend and support system, especially for someone new in this role. I don't think you understand how amazing it is to have someone like you that's willing to help at any time. So thank you for that, and I wish you well.
Okay, city manager report, Matt.
Yeah, first thing I just wanted to just remind everyone is that we've got the Light Up Main Street event coming up on December 3rd from 6 to 9. Did I say that right? I thought I heard a comment. No, okay. So there, we've got that coming up. And then, Adam, don't go.
Second.
You had me at, I think that might be illegal. So, Lisa, I just want to thank you for everything you've done for us in this organization. I mean, clearly, you, as everyone has stated, you're very important to all of us, and that is definitely true for me. You've been our advisor, colleague, friend, and at least I'll be able to keep one of those three things going forward. I think you'll be an amazing judge, and but I hope you aren't a stranger because, like I said, beyond the professional guidance that you provide us, just being able to spend time, talk about the issues of the day, whatever sort of crazy thing Dustin's got going on or whatever. No, I kid. But anyway, so thank you, and we're all gonna miss you.
And if you ever get tired of being the mediator between the Real Housewives of Draper, you can come right back to us.
I've said that to her many times. Not the Real Housewives comment, but she can come back. Sometimes I feel like I'm sitting up here between yin and yang. I've got chaos over here and, very calm and,
Thank you.
Sorry, Matt, had to. All right, let's move on.
Did you hear he full name shamed me earlier?
I did. Sorry, Matt. You. Okay, moving on to our public hearing. Consider Midvale City request for amendments to Title 17 of the Midvale City Municipal Code to address setbacks for garages, carports, and accessory structures within the SF1 and SF2 zones. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
All right, move that we open a public hearing.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Yes.
Okay, we are going to hear from Adam Olson.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. While we're getting the PowerPoint ready, I'll just kind of recap where we are. We had met and discussed this about a month or so ago in a work session. Took some comments from that work session, incorporated them into the draft, and then moved it forward to Planning Commission. So just as a little background, there are multiple areas in the SF1 and SF2 zones that, due to certain circumstances, the lots could be quite narrow. The way the homes were built leaves very little, if any, room for expansion of carports and or accessory structures. And so what this amendment proposes is that those setbacks be modified to allow expansion in those areas. So the current code allows a 4-foot setback for any expansion of a garage or carport. And this proposal would allow that to go down to the property line that was discussed at the work session. And so that was incorporated into the draft. It could go down to that 0 setback or the property line, provided certain criteria are met, and those criteria are called out in the draft ordinance, which would become part of the code. Some of those are that it be surveyed by a licensed surveyor, that there be no openings on the property line, no drainage onto that adjacent property, et cetera. All fire and building codes would have to be met, and then it would also allow an extension further back into the property for those, the garage and the carport. And then similar with accessory structures and external ADUs or accessory dwelling units, the current code in these two zones allows a 2-foot setback. And again, this would allow the option to go down to the property line provided those criteria are met. And those are the same criteria that are called out for attached garages and carports. With this proposal, it is the hope is that for those wanting to expand that otherwise couldn't, this gives them an opportunity to do so and then stay within code. The Planning Commission discussed this, and they felt they supported these amendments and recommended approval to you as the council.
Questions or comments for Adam? Okay, seeing none, this item is open for public comment. If there are any public comments, you may step forward to the microphone and state your name for the record.
Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Yes. Yes.
Aye.
Okay, that is closed. Thank you. All right, moving on to our action item for this. Adopt ordinance number 2022-019, an ordinance amending chapters 17-714A2D and 17-718C, single-family residential zone SF1, 17-724A2D, and 17-728C, single-family residential zone SF2, table 17-714, single-family residential zone SF1, and table 17-724, single-family residential zone SF2 of the Midvale City Municipal Code.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
You know, I feel like that was my bill and Dustin just stole it
Oh.
by making the motion. I didn't even get to read that.
I retract my motion.
No, I seconded it.
Okay,
Too late. I'm
do-
stubborn.
We do have a motion and a second on the table. Any discussion on that? Okay, Rory, will you call roll?
Yes, Councilmember Sperry.
Aye.
And Glover.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
And Gettle.
Yes.
Okay, that carries. Sorry. Thanks. Moving on to our consent agenda, we've got 2 items tonight. Consider minutes of November 1st, 2022, and consider ordinance number 2022-020, amending chapter 8.09 of the Midvale Municipal Code regarding wastewater disposal. If you remember, that was presented in our last council meeting. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor, I motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Rory, will you call roll?
Councilmember Glover.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
And Sperry.
Aye.
Okay, we've got, that carries, thank you. Moving on to our discussion items. Discuss establishing a time and place for holding regular city council meetings, designate the mayor pro tempore schedule, and adopt a holiday schedule for the 2023 calendar year.
Thanks,
Lauren.
Mayor. Thank you. In your package, you have a draft resolution that's been prepared with the 2023 proposed calendar year, the holiday schedule, as well as the Mayor Pro Tem schedule. We do have the difference in our usual dates of the first and third Tuesdays of every month will be August because of harvest days. So we've got the 8th and the 22nd. In November, we do have the election. So the dates will be the 14th and the 21st, and then, of course, December. We don't usually try to have a meeting too close to the holidays, so we usually do one back-to-back or just one during that month. So I did put the 5th and the 12th, where you have the option of just having just the one if you desire. On the Mayor Pro Tem, we've left it the same as it has been in the past years. If you have any changes to that, more than happy to make those changes if somebody wants to double up.
on a few months, and that would be great. Instead of Councilmember Sperry doing it, but it's totally up to you.
It's fine.
Okay. And then we have our holiday schedule. The only difference that we have this year is the Juneteenth. We have as on June 19th. And the other holidays are the same as we've had in past years. Are there any questions on the holidays? Okay.
Questions, comments from the council?
Are we just going to put that on the consent agenda for next meeting?
We definitely can, if that's okay with you.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks,
you.
Rory. All right, moving on to our next discussion item. Discussion regarding the execution of a right-of-way lease agreement with Fourth Ave and Main LLC and waiver of the associated annual rent for the use of a bulb out located on the west side of the building at 7563 South Main Street, Midvale, Utah 84047.
Yeah, that's a lot louder, or longer with like hearing it read out loud, so I apologize. Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight I am bringing you a discussion on a right-of-way lease agreement as opposed to an action like last time. This one is a little different in that Rick Service, who's here tonight, is proposing the construction of a new bulb out located at 7563 South Main Street. And you can see in this picture it actually extends in front of the other building that's next to it there. So like I said, the proposed improvements will go in front of the restaurant building there, and then it'll also extend in front of Bernie and Brothers Barber Co. And it will provide outdoor dining. It has been reviewed by Planning and Public Works and Engineering. Engineering is just waiting on a drainage plan. The terms that we're proposing for the agreement are similar to the last one. The annual rent for the use of the street is set at $910 per parking space. For this one, it would take up 2 parking spaces. The lease for the use of the permanent bulb out would be in effect for 10 years, and the tenant would have the option to extend the lease for 2 additional 5-year terms. The tenant shall not make any improvements to the premises without first obtaining the city's written consent, and the tenant shall carry a policy of general liability insurance. Just like with the last one, per the terms of the proposed agreement, the city may at its discretion waive the required fee if a determination of an economic offset is established. Once again, city staff believes that there is an offset due to the following reasons. It enables opportunities for restaurants on Main Street to provide additional outdoor dining, establishes new and creative opportunities along the street, provides preservation and enhancement of the street, enhances pedestrian safety, and it offers ongoing maintenance of the 2 parking spaces, which will then be used for outdoor dining by the tenant at no cost to the city. So, as stated, we believe it's a net benefit, and we should forego the annual rent of $1,820 for this space. Again, this is just a discussion item. I wanted to see how council felt about the agreement and about the waiving of the annual rent.
I don't have any issues with that. I think that makes sense. However, this particular bulb out, and someone really has to explain to me why it's called that. I don't understand that terminology. But there's just an issue already with the drive-through at the coffee shop, and this extending the sidewalk out even more is going to create some issues, I would think, with people now having to pull up even farther before they turn from the drive-through.
Are you saying so that they have
So that
like
they-
a clear
Yeah. So they're going to have to
site?
pull up
Yeah.
farther.
Yeah.
Farther. You know, and I don't know, that's what I hear often as the problem with that drive-through now is that pedestrians go through and then the cars have to be very, very careful. So if it's out even farther, then those cars are going to have to come out even farther before they turn right or
Onto
left
the
onto
road.
Main Street.
Okay.
So I don't know that it's the best, I don't know that that's going to be a very safe thing.
If the sidewalk's pushed further outward, where the access is, it would be better. Because right now, it's like when you leave that building, right where that sidewalk is, like when I went through that drive-through once with my truck, like right where that sidewalk is now, like Dustin's saying, like, I'm maybe might kill someone. I guess I just have to go and see what happens, right? Because that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
But if the sidewalk itself was pushed out further with the bulb out, at least where they cross, that would actually save that, because then I could at least see if pedestrians walking.
Got it.
It's just from this picture that we're looking at, you would have to, I mean, your car would be fully covering the sidewalk in order to turn, which, you know, is, at least now you can park behind the sidewalk and stick your neck out if you have to look. I mean, everyone pulls up, but to me, it just seems like, and especially if there's 2 or 3 cars in the drive-through, now you just have like a long line of cars blocking pedestrian access. So again, I don't know that, I mean, I love the concept of these bulb outs. I just don't know that it makes the most pedestrian-friendly sense in that particular location.
I understand that, and that might be something to look into as far as even having the structure or the wall there. But the idea, I guess, behind having the bulb outs is that it should slow down traffic so that you don't have cars driving as quickly down the street, which may make it easier to pull out and safer for pedestrians. But I also understand that with the 2 buildings right there pulling forward, it's hard to see if a pedestrian is walking in front of you before you pull out.
And is that sign an indicator that there will just be, I'm very bad with right and left, right turn only?
I'm not sure. Rick worked with some architects to put that together.
Yeah, that is a right turn only.
Okay, that's good.
And as in like even the building before, and as in anywhere in a stop sign, there is an angle that is needed. And when we get down to exact construction documents, you know, we'll have to get those approved, and that will be part of it. So it won't be any different angle than really any other stop sign or any other building in the city, you know.
And I guess it should be noted that it would be taking up a parking spot. So if a car was parked there, it would be about the same visibility as it would for the tables
And you can
and the
see,
structure.
excuse me, and you can see we're putting up, pros to put a planter box, and that is part of the idea behind that. So that space right there, you can see over the planter and out into the traffic. And again, that is a right turn only, so you really are looking at the cars coming to the left and trying not to run into it.
Personally, I view this as 2 separate issues. One is the pedestrian as you are exiting the actual drive-through, and that to me is just, I don't know if you'd be willing to install one of those, the mirrors, you know, the big circular ones that then cars can, I don't know what they're called, yeah, so cars can see if there are people there. That to me is the easy fix there. And actually on the bulb out, I think this gives you the opportunity to pull into the road a little bit. And I know that because that is a grate, if you're turning right, you're gonna be looking left, and that's all great there. And so I would think that if you could pull out into that, then you'd actually be able to see fine.
I think so too.
Yeah, I mostly worry about the pedestrians on the crosswalk, but that can be, I think if we had one of those mirrors there,
Yeah,
it would be
you're
helpful.
like stuck on the building or something,
Yeah,
so they can see.
that would be helpful.
That's easily done.
My question for you with this, I understand you own these buildings, so maybe you don't, not that you'd have to do this. Have you talked with Bernie and Bros about this? I know that recently we had to shut down the street for an event we did, and I had some complaints specifically from them about doing that, and this is taking away some of their parking spots. I just want to make sure it's being communicated to them that it's happening.
I have, and the sentiment that she said to me was, you mean people are going to be sitting there and looking into my building? And I said, yes. She said, oh, that's great. So that's kind of where we left it.
I'm getting my hair cut there tomorrow morning, so I guess I will, assuming this, I'll have a talk.
I like the bulb out that you've done outside the coffee shop. I think that's, I know, I don't think it's done just yet as far as adornments and things.
Yeah,
but-
the last thing that we need to do is there's a canvas awning that's gonna go from the street to the building, and that just hasn't been installed
Yeah.
yet.
I like it. It just adds a better feel to the coffee shop to have that there. So this looks great. I think it's going to be great. I just, wanted to bring up those concerns that I have about the pedestrian safety.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
And I'm just wondering if the council would be okay with this coming back on the consent agenda, or would you like it to come back as an action item?
I think I'd like it to come back as an action item, just in case there's anyone who might want to talk about it from the community, either residents of the avenues or just anyone who might have similar concerns.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Paul?
Motion to adjourn.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Say
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Definitely.
We've adjourned. All right, it's only 7:23. Wow, regularly we would have only started 23 minutes ago. Do we just want to jump right in, or does anybody need a break?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Okay.
She was taking that.
We're taking a break.
Seriously.
Oh, we're taking a break.
No? Okay.
We're not taking a break.
All righty. All right, it is 7:24. Welcome everybody to the RDA meeting tonight. Rory, will you call roll?
Yes. Board Member Gettle,
Here.
Sperry,
I am here.
Brown,
Here.
Robinson. Here. And Glover.
Here.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the public comments portion. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for public hearing on the agenda may address the redevelopment agency of Midvale City Board at this point by stepping to the microphone and giving their name for the record. Do we have any public comments? Okay. Moving on to our consent agenda, just one item, consider minutes of October 18th, 2022. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor, I motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Rory, will you call roll?
Yes. Board Member Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
Sperry.
Aye.
And Robinson.
Aye.
Okay, that carries. Thank you. We've got 3 discussion items tonight. First one, discuss establishing a time and place for holding redevelopment agency meetings for the 2023 calendar year. Rory.
This is a fairly easy one. This is a draft resolution that's in your packet stating that the redevelopment agency will hold the meetings immediately after council meetings. And then if we have any changes to that, then we can do so. Are there any questions on the
I have
resolution?
a question, and it was
Yes.
probably more appropriate during our council meeting. But when we had the November meetings, because of the election, does that mean, have we decided formally that next election is going to be conducted ranked choice
We have not.
voting? Okay, so we could have an August. When is the primary? Is it normally August? I don't know.
August.
I've never
August.
had one.
August. Yeah, I know, they keep changing, so it's confusing.
Okay, so we
But
might,
it's August, yes.
we might have something to do there
Correct.
if we don't. Are we just automatically into ranked choice voting, or do we have to make a decision
That is a
one
good
way or
question.
another?
That is a good question, and
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, discussion for a different time then, I guess, but
But that is
I just didn't want to,
good one to bring up.
Passed a resolution saying we were going to do that, do we only do that for, saying we're only going to do that?
it was a pilot, I believe it was a pilot program.
Correct, it was a pilot program.
My recollection is it was for that election, and we would reevaluate.
Thank you, correct. I will find out more information and bring that back for
Okay.
further discussion. Any questions on?
Just that these are all subject to change.
Absolutely, yes, you can always make changes as you need. The municipal building authority is the same.
Okay.
So they follow the city council meetings, and then if you make changes, that's fine. Is consent agenda okay for the next meeting?
Believe so. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, moving on to item B, discussion regarding the release of an RFP to contract with a local organization to assist the RDA in finalizing and administering 2 new housing programs, down payment assistance, DPA, and a home repair loan program, HRLP. Maggie.
All right, good to be here with you all tonight. First, I want to say it was great to see many of you at the Sunset Gardens groundbreaking. I'm really proud of that project, and thank you for your support. And Lisa, it's been great working with you. Sad to see you go. Let's see. Okay, so we have a lot to cover with this discussion item. We're going to be talking about 2 new housing programs and a request for proposals to find an organization to help us administer these programs, and we'll talk about the funding as well. And there will be time after each of these to ask questions. Like I said, there's a lot to go over, so hopefully this will go smoothly. First off, I wanted to just take a look at our goals and strategies from the Moderate Income Housing Plan from 2019. Much of what we're talking about tonight will accomplish 4 of the goals in this plan. The first one is to provide a financial incentive to repair homes. The second is just, is that me or is it you? It keeps moving forward. Oh, shoot. Maybe it's programmed.
I told Juan to keep it going.
Okay, I'll talk quicker. There is? Oh, well, can you take the time? Okay, thank you. Okay. And then focusing on individuals or households making 80% AMI or less, and establishing a down payment assistance program for new homeowners, and to provide home ownership education with housing partners. So all these things are going to be accomplished with these new programs. The first one we're going to talk about is the down payment assistance program. The purpose is to provide loans or grants, as you could call them, for low to moderate income first-time home buyers. It will provide equitable access to home buying, increase home ownership, and there's some weird mistakes in this that I don't know how they got there. Also provide homeownership education. And I just wanted to note the percentage of owner-occupied homes in Midvale City is at 45%, and renter-occupied is at 55%. I did a little digging for the cities, surrounding cities around us, and they're about 70% owner-occupied, 70 to 85% owner-occupied. So it's just an interesting statistic. So each year, the down payment assistance program will aid up to 10 individuals. The loans will be $20,000 or $25,000 for employees of the municipality, and like I mentioned earlier, provide homeowner education and various consultations on home buying. So the loan terms include a 5-year forgivable loan. So each year it will be 20% reduced. And these funds can be used for down payment, closing costs, and insurance or other items that, that go along with home buying. They need to complete a education course through HUD, and also a post-home purchase consultation with the contracting organization that we'll be working with. The borrower must be under contract to purchase the home and be qualified for down payment assistance. And there's HUD maximums for purchasing price of the homes, which the administering organization we'd be working with would be verifying all those terms. In order to be eligible for this loan, it must be in Midvale City, must be first-time home buyer, it must occupy it within 30 days of closing, and also be living in the home for the 5-year term. And they can't have $20,000 in their account before or after funding. Basically, if they have money for a down payment, then we wouldn't they wouldn't be able to qualify. So they would have to repay the loan if they sell the house within that 5-year period. So again, 20% is reduced each year, so the property also has to be owner occupied within 30 days, and it can't be rented, and they have to occupy the home for the full 5-year term.
Is that the property as a whole can't be rented? Or can they receive rent on, like
Like a
board or
room?
rent on a room?
I'm not sure, that's a good question.
Okay.
I can
Sorry, I'm just
find that
curious.
out. Yeah, and again, we'll be working with an organization who administers these loans. That's what they do, so they'll probably have some great insight on that.
Thank you.
Any questions about down payment assistance?
I just had a quick question. You mentioned 20,000 per loan, and then it said 25,000 for employee of the municipality. Can you explain that?
Sure.
So like someone who works for Midvale City would get $5,000 more
Yes.
than someone who doesn't? I don't know if I love that.
Sorry, this keeps going.
I mean, I like the idea of making homes more affordable for people, but I don't know that an employee of the city should get more. It sounds, I don't know, that sounds like an area of concern to me.
We, in the plan that was approved with the housing elements or whatnot, there was some reference in that to providing this kind of assistance. We did sort of modify what was even in that plan a little bit to get to this point, because we think that potentially maybe there might be, that could be something to incentivize an employee to come work here, something like that. That might be a good tool in that way. But I also completely understand what you were saying, and that's why we're discussing it tonight, is if you guys don't like it, then it doesn't have to be in there. But that's why it's in there.
I think all things being equal, if someone qualifies income-wise, then I think that it should be an equal amount for, because, I don't know, that's a tough one. Because there's something about it that doesn't entirely seem proper to me, like to give an employee of the city more money than someone who doesn't work for the city, but may currently already live in Midvale somewhere.
Would it include UPD, UFA?
So the original language that was approved in the, I'm sorry, do you want to cover that?
Sure, so, yeah, the new housing element that was just passed with you all a few weeks ago includes language that would support county and city employees and any contracted services with the county or the city. So that would include, if we went that broad, that would include teachers, fire, police, librarians.
I mean, that seems better to me if you include teachers and fire, police, because the idea is if you work for the government, you might make a little bit less, but there's other benefits while working for the government, right?
I do want to just point out that that's how Maggie wrote it, and then I told her to narrow that down to employees. So if you guys go down that road, I just want to point out that I made that call, made that mistake.
I just know several teachers at Midvale Elementary School that live in Midvale that are very active in the community, and I would like them to, if there was an added benefit, they seem like they should also.
Could we make the additional benefit available for Midvale city residents, just that kind of blanket statement, so that incentivizing someone who rents in the city of Midvale to give them an extra 5,000 or whatever to, stay here and in a house here?
The preceding 12 months or something like that, they were a Midvale resident.
Yeah.
Is that even allowed? Is that legal? Is that legal, Lisa? She'll just say yes to everything right now. Yeah, totally legal. Sorry, Garrett.
It's Garrett's problem.
Totally, just do that.
I will say I like Councilmember Gettle's idea, and I also fully agree with Councilmember Brown. I know that as I've had conversations with the Canyon School District and have asked, like, what can the city do? Largely, I think what has been asked is our teachers can't afford to live in the district that they teach. And so I think that if this is a way for us to be able to help with that, I think we should do it.
So put it back to original language, expand out to see if someone's lived here for the last 12 months as a renter, that we would add them into that
Or,
$25,000.
yeah, not even necessarily a renter, just someone who might live with their parents or something, doesn't.
Whose
just as-
permanent residence has been here for the last 12 months.
I like that idea. So.
Wow, Maggie, I read that one all wrong.
It's all good, that's why
Chaos.
we're discussing it.
He likes chaos.
All right.
I love when we sort of give half guidance like that and then just say like, good luck, figure it out. Read our minds, come back, we'll be good. But the consent agenda, I'm sure it's great.
So I do have a question. So you want to incentivize even more for people who live in Midvale as well as broadening beyond the municipality to, go ahead.
I don't, if this were my decision only, I would say that if you live outside of Midvale City, you should get $20,000, up to $20,000. And if you live in Midvale City in one capacity or another, renter, live with your parents, whatever, then we would offer that additional $5,000 for those people. I don't necessarily think, I mean, if you're a firefighter who lives in Draper, who wants to live in, $20,000 would be great, as help with a down payment. I would like to see that extra $5,000 incentivize people who live in Midvale to stay in Midvale and have home ownership in Midvale. Whether they're, work for the city, the county, UPD, UFA, Taylorsville Police Department, whatever.
And just as a reminder, if the firefighter in Draper does not fit within the 80% AMI and below, they wouldn't qualify for a down payment at all.
Yeah, I don't think that we should start looking into people's employment as other than what they're making, their dollar amount that they're making. I don't necessarily think that we should prioritize one profession over another. Yeah. Because if you meet that 80% threshold, there's a reason why, you're meeting that threshold. So, we're helping people who qualify and, I would think that most police officers and firefighters might not qualify for that based on income, but, I don't know for sure.
Depends on how big their family is.
What's that?
Depends on how big their family is.
That's true. But again, I think, it's not like they're not qualifying at all. They're qualifying for a very generous amount.
Dustin, if you would clarify for me, you're just saying 20,000 across the board, 25 for current Midvale residents.
Yes, and
that's
we
the
could
distinction.
Yes, and we could set 12 months or something. I think Councilmember Brown mentioned that. Some sort, so you don't, like, I've lived here 2 days. So.
I'm going to live in Midvale, so I am now a Midvale resident.
Are there other thoughts on that? Because with that, I mean, if we're just doing 20,000 across the board, then we wouldn't be giving an extra incentive to other public employees like we just talked about. Now, a public employee could still come and apply for it. It just wouldn't be an extra on top of.
Mm-hmm. I actually like the idea of the public employers being able to have that because there's something to be said about working and living in the city. That, you know what I mean? That means something, especially coming from a council member. I work in the city that I represent, and that means something to me. I'm more invested in this. Does that make sense?
Could we change it? Because if it's my understanding, we're saying public employees, but it was that a Draper City fire person living here. But I think really the intent is to say you work in a Midvale school, you live in Midvale, you work in a Midvale fire station, you live in Midvale.
My understanding with that is it's the county that's your municipality is within, so it'd be the county and the municipality. Does that make sense? So I don't know if Draper's in another county?
No, they're in Salt Lake.
They're in Salt Lake County?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yep. I mean, let me 100% verify that, but that's my understanding of the.
Well, they're buying property in Midvale, right? Right, they could be in a police.
You guys can make the terms whatever you want it to be. So the original language that was in the previous, the housing element, had broadened it to saying you could be someone who works for the county at the airport, but you live in Midvale. So because you're a public employee.
Yeah, they would.
You would get this to live here.
Yeah.
And that's 25,000.
Yeah, but it's because you live in.
Because you live.
In my view, it would be because you live here, not
Right.
based on where you work.
But there is, so, I mean, going back to the parsing here, there is sort of this idea of saying, I can't remember who was saying it, but
This direction.
You're a public employee who works in Midvale and lives in Midvale. Then there's, you're a public employee, period, who now will live in Midvale because of this program. And then there was the discussion of just saying, if you were a previous resident in Midvale, you'd get this additional benefit.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, personally, I like the 20,000 across the board, but with Councilmember Gettle's idea of 25 if you're in Midvale and as an incentive to stay, and then also if you are an employee that works in Midvale that also wants to live here. And so then the live and work option. On one hand, I want to support all public employees. I know that I think this fund at this point is only $250,000, so it's not like we've got all
Up
the
to
down
10.
payments
It's up to
in
10.
in the world to be able to give out. And so I would rather incentivize the folks that are, again, a Midvale, a teacher who's teaching in one of our Midvale schools who wants to live in this community and helping them do that, or a city employee here, that kind of situation.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
I like that.
So this, yeah, okay, so if you work, I was just thinking for a second. So if you work here or live here, you'd be eligible for an additional $5,000. I think that's perfect, no matter what your profession might be.
Great.
Yes.
No matter what your profession would be, being a city
Being public
employee.
public.
Okay. All right, anything else with down payment assistance? Okay. The home repair loan program, this is an opportunity for us to, again, just provide additional income assistance for low to moderate income homeowners. This will help to improve eliminate the look and feel of Midvale, eliminate blight, also address emergency repairs. Sorry, this is really getting me. It's throwing me off. Again, it's first come, first serve funding, and this is, we have $150,000 budgeted for this annually. Again, it's 80% AMI or below to qualify. There's various FICO score requirements and requirements for the actual home. It should be a single-family townhome, condominium. Manufactured home must be permanently affixed. They have to be a Midvale resident for 1 year before they can apply, and it must be deficient in, one uniform housing code or housing quality standards. This is a once-in-a-lifetime loan, and they must be current on their mortgage and payments and taxes. Sorry, I'm not seeing all this. The property must be their primary residence. The terms of the assistance are 5 to 25 years, and the interest rate is 0 to 3%. And I'll go into the details about that in a little bit. But there's different front and back end ratios that they have to, requirements that they need to meet. If it's a landlord or a co-buyer, they would not qualify, and there's different loan-to-value or combined loan-to-value ratios that they would need to meet requirements for. And the details for these, we have some examples on like a pretty standard framework in the summary report that I sent to you all. But again, working with the administrator who would contract with, they would really help us to refine these and get us up to speed on what the standards are right now, especially in the current market. So the administrator of these programs would work with the individuals to get the best loan repayment plan, what would work best for them. And there's 4 options for that. There's the deferred payment loan, which you have to be 50% AMI or below to qualify for. An installment loan, which is your standard loan repayment plan. A forgivable loan or grant, but again, you have to be 50% AMI and below to qualify for that, and that would only be up to $5,000. And then there's alternative loan payments. Again, the administrator would look at all the income and different scores for the applicants to determine the best repayment plan for them. And the loans can be any amount up to $15,000 with an interest rate of 0 to 3%. Only those loans that are $5,000 or below are qualified for a 0% interest rate. And again, this is all based on, there's a sliding scale that these administrators have to determine what the best option is for the applicant. Eligible repairs include health or safety hazards, accessibility modifications, code compliance, energy improvements, any sort of improvement that's not a permanent fixture of the real property is not eligible. And thank you for letting me stumble through that. I'm really thrown off by this timer, and I can't read the lower half of my presentation. Do you have any questions about the home repair loan program?
Administrators, do they charge?
Mm-hmm.
What's their percent?
We don't know. We're going to be, in the RFP process, we'll find out what their bid for the cost is.
That just concerns me. If they take too much, it's not, they're going to get a lot less money than what we think we're giving them. So,
Yeah.
maybe they're not. I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
From what I've gathered, it's pretty reasonable. I know that there's one organization that for down payment assistance, for example, they have like a $500 fee per loan that they administer. As far as the home repair loan program, I'm not quite sure yet. We would have to wait until we get the RFP proposals back.
How proactive would we, the city, be in letting people know that, especially the home repair loan program exists for, just some problem properties that the chief might be aware of or that, we're aware of?
Yeah, so
explain that to me.
we are going to work one of the bigger scores in the RFP is marketing and promotion and outreach. We want to make sure that we have brochures ready to go, so when we're enforcing codes or our compliance officers are out in the field, they'll have this information to hand out to folks. I spoke with Laura quite a few months ago when we started working on this, on ways to get the word out there to residents through mailers. And yeah, it's going to be really important in the RFP that the applicants describe their outreach and marketing plans to help us really make sure we get the word out there.
And then you mentioned the FICO score. Is there scores that are prohibitive for a resident to get the loan altogether? Like they would go through all this, apply for it, and then be denied because of their credit score? Or is the credit score is that what determines the amount of the loan provided that they qualify based on all the other criteria?
I would have to find out. I don't know how to answer that question.
Okay. I would just be interested in that because, not to generalize, but, if someone's home is in great disrepair, they may very well not have the greatest FICO score as well.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want that to become too prohibitive for folks to try to get themselves out of that.
I think what we've listed was like 550, which is, but again, we'll work with the administrator to make sure
That also,
we figure something out.
your credit score also ties into your ability to qualify, though.
Yeah, that one our number wouldn't even matter.
Yeah.
If they can't get an actual loan, right? Like 25 grand isn't gonna buy a home here. So,
Well, I just meant for the home repair.
yeah,
This
that side, I guess, is a
specific.
little different, but yeah.
It's still the same thing. Your ability to qualify for a mortgage is almost guided by your credit. A 550 score, more and more likely, there's very limited loans that person could qualify for with that FICO score. So by keeping that score that low, it's not going to be that requirement that's going to hinder them from being able to do it. It's going to be their ability to qualify for the loan.
But if someone just outright owns a home that's in disrepair, then, you wouldn't be worried about qualifying for that loan.
Yeah, you couldn't do like a kitchen for 25 grand, so they probably would need additional funding. But if they wanted just 25 grand for like a roof or siding or something, I guess I see Councilmember Gettle's point. Yeah, it probably won't come up that much, the score, because of that, but.
And where are the funds coming for this? Are they in our housing fund or where?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, we have actually a whole slide on funding in
Okay.
just a few moments.
Okay, great.
Can I ask a question
ahead.
before we move on to that? Just two things. A, with that marketing, I'd really appreciate it if this RFP team had a specific point on how they'd outreach to the Hispanic Latino community here and making sure that we have
Yes.
marketing in Spanish
Yes.
specifically, and if there's questions that ask them about how they would engage in that process would be great.
Yes, we definitely will. Many of the organizations I've been researching have that as part of their outreach and communication.
The other thing is, how long, so I know we've got 250,000 for the down payment assistance, 150 for the home repair. How long is that supposed to last us? Is this I guess I'm unclear if this is until we run out and then we see if we can add more in, or if this is for the next year that we have this?
This would be a first come, first serve and an annual, 400,000 annually.
Okay.
Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. As we go through the budget for next year, with that 400,000, I mean, are we really looking at closer to, trying to think how many months into the fiscal year we are now, but is this to close us out through the next fiscal year and then we would restart that?
So we budgeted for this fiscal year, but we haven't launched we haven't been able to launch the programs quite yet. So that will definitely roll over. And I should also mention that that doesn't include the administrative fees, but we do have funding, just general funding set aside for whatever that comes back to be.
Thank you.
All right, we're getting through it. Okay. As I've been mentioning, the Redevelopment Agency is going to release a request for proposals for a organization to administer these programs. Not only are we asking them to administer them, we would like for them to help us refine and these programs so that they align with the current standards. Sorry. And it would be a 2-year term, 2-year trial period with a 10-year term contract. So we'd have a couple years to work out if they're a good match, and also to get a good feel for what these programs, how they would be successful in Midvale. Here's some examples of a couple contracting organizations that could potentially apply. NeighborWorks SLC, they administer these same programs for Salt Lake City and Murray City. And then there's the Community Development Corporation of Utah. They administer these same programs for Salt Lake County, Salt Lake City, and Taylorsville City. And I wanted to just let you know, too, that West Valley City administers their own programs, but they have an entire department and a grants division and a full-time person overseeing just one of these programs. Any questions about releasing a request for proposals to contract with an organization.
I guess the only question I have is, I know Salt Lake County has the same type of program. So the question is, would it be better just to give them the money and let them administer it and tell them they have to do it in Midvale? Or do we really need another group to do the same thing?
That's a great question. What I would say is their funding is pretty much already gone midway through the year, so.
Well, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, we're gonna give this much money to the repairs or whatever we're doing. Does it make sense to have a whole nother organization? We have a contract with them, or do we just contract with Salt Lake County to do the same thing in Midvale?
There's a contracting.
Just as duplicate.
Yeah, so if someone else wants to jump in, Community Development Corporation of Utah is administering these programs for Salt Lake County. So they're not administering their own
They're
programs,
not administering
I
it
don't
for us, but if they're doing the whole county, I think we're trying to duplicate something that's already happened.
Well,
And I don't know, I'm just asking a question.
They could, so the community development of, you went, Corporation of Utah is the one that does it for Salt Lake County. They have the option to bid on this along with everybody else. So rather than just contract with them, putting out a bid and seeing, are they the best ones, or are some of these others that work in the other cities, what is the best one? That's the way we get the lowest price. So I think the RFP will be the best method to get the lowest price, the best return. If it was, I mean, if Salt Lake County were doing it and they were doing it in-house the way that West Valley does it, they wouldn't bid on it. But the fact that they have an outside group doing it gives us some pretty good confidence that we could get a really, really good bid from them, but we could get another bid from one of these other nonprofits. So I think it just gives us the lowest.
I just want to make sure not just duplicating what's already being done.
Yeah. No, I think we're not.
So when you say they administer it for Salt Lake County, they administer it for the townships within Salt Lake County? Or is this a county-wide program as well that now adding the cities in, you'd be dual eligible? I kind of don't understand that aspect of it, unless, again, Salt Lake County means that it's focused on the metro townships.
I need to look into that more. I know the amounts of down payment are different with all of these programs as well, and the various qualifications, but I honestly don't know how to answer.
Because if it's countywide, then, we might have folks that are eligible for even more money.
Well, we do. I mean, every year, there's the county you can apply to get your home fixed. Now, there's only so much money and it runs out, I'm sure. But it is a county program, and we used to, the CBC we'd give money to them every year to be able to do that. So I don't know how it exactly pans out now, but I know it's available to Midvale City residents through Salt Lake County.
It is, but you normally can't layer them because they file a second mortgage position. Yeah, so normally if you qualify for one, you get one.
And the other thing is that with a lot of these programs, what we end up seeing is, because we end up competing with all the other communities, the thing that this program does is ensure that we know that we'll have funds there. It's probably worth trying to see, if our funds get low, do we have access to those county funds? And so that's one of the reasons to do this. The funding, which is, I guess, the next slide or whatnot, is coming from our RDA's affordable housing funds, and we have to spend them on things that are for those making 80% or AMI or 80% of AMI or less. And so whether it's this program or another program, we would be targeting housing in that same way. And I think that it advantages our community if we have resources that are dedicated to them. Your point's well taken, though, that we don't want to duplicate services that are being provided. I don't think that is, as Nate said, and then with us being able to target these funds, I don't think it's being identical. They might have similar programs, but this will ensure that more of our residents will get access to funds.
We just put it in the terms that you're not obtaining another grant, or what, is this a grant?
A loan.
A loan.
What we've been,
So we don't want to say
Forgivable
grant,
loan.
because if they get a grant, that's, different, another, I don't know.
Yeah.
We can do 10 a year, so I feel like the idea of it overlapping seems slim.
well, I do like the idea that it's just Midvale residents only.
35,000.
Obviously. If we were gonna give our money to the county, you'd do the same thing. It's like, you're not gonna use this money for anybody else if we're giving it to you.
Yeah.
So this does make sure that that is the case.
Yeah, and we can cater these programs to better benefit Midvale residents than the county might be able to as well. So yes, like Matt mentioned, well, I don't want to skip too far ahead. Do we have any other questions about the administration and the RFP? Okay, like Matt mentioned, these are tax increment dollars. They're part of the citywide housing fund, which is 20% of that tax increment, and they are restricted for affordable housing. So that's where the majority of the funding will come from. Furthermore, we're going to apply for community development block grants to supplement much of this. I just went to a training today, and they are they're very supportive of especially the home repair loan program. So we could potentially fund, maybe a good chunk of that with those grants. So again, the fiscal impact would be $400,000 annually plus the administrative costs. The final program and the administrative costs will be approved by you all, so we will be bringing that back to you. Any questions about funding the programs?
As our RDAs grow, and we have more of that 20%, that number grows, is there plans to increase, if this is successful, this 250,000, have you all talked about expanding that in the future?
We haven't, but that's definitely something we could continue to discuss. Yeah, I know in West Valley City that the home repair loan program goes very quickly. It's in high demand. Down payment assistance right now is, with the way things are going with the economy and the housing market, those aren't as successful, but they will grow to be successful again. But yeah, as we grow and as these get popular, we could definitely discuss that.
Any other questions, comments for Maggie?
Just really quickly, I wanted to share with you the program timeline. So I'm hoping to bring this back to you all December 6th for final approval, so we can then release the RFP. We'll then evaluate the proposals and then select a service provider and prepare a contract and then bring that back to you all. Then once we contract with an organization, we'll work to refine those two programs and then again bring that back to you all for final program approval and budget approval as well. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to our last discussion item of the night, discussion regarding proposed Main Street Facade Improvement Program. Kate. Okay,
Can
just
you
correct me.
Can you repeat
Facade.
that?
Well, I was like,
It's fine.
I whispered it because I wanted to make sure I think I'm more embarrassed than you are right now.
That's okay.
It's not facade, everyone.
It could be.
I thought it was arcade, actually.
We can go with that, the Facade
I'm
Improvement
changing
Program.
it.
In Midvale. City resolution.
We're unlike any other city with this program, so. Okay, thank you, board. I am just going to go over this program proposal, and hopefully we can discuss any concerns or thoughts after the terms are presented. So in looking at facade improvement programs, they've been utilized by both cities and state organizations to help promote the revitalization of blighted or unmaintained commercial properties within aging districts. So in looking at these programs, we're hoping to target this directly to Main Street. There are several programs like this in Utah. And in doing some research, we found that a lot of these bigger cities have strict requirements like that of being a designated historical site. However, as staff, we decided that we did not want to include that as it limits the amount and type of updates that a property owner can do to the facade. We also found that many of these programs have a requirement where the person that receives the money must convey an easement on the facade to the granting agency. So that is something that we are hoping to have as part of this program. The program terms. So what's being proposed is a maximum grant award of $35,000 per project. This grant award will not, shall not exceed 50% of the total cost of improvements. The grant awards will be provided as a reimbursement, and documentation must be provided to show proof of payments and as well as any release of liens held by contractors. In that agreement, the awardees must also agree to maintain and keep in good repair the facade or improvements, and then they will convey a facade easement to the RDA to be held in perpetuity. And then the City of Midvale and RDA will assume no liability of any work that's done pursuant to this program. So the eligible activities would include repair to building exterior facades, masonry repair, cleaning, exterior painting, the replacing or repairing of cornices, entrances, doors, windows, and awnings, sign construction, repairs that will enhance the aesthetic quality of the building, anything that accentuates existing features, or the addition of design elements that may not have existed on that building but would have appeared on similar buildings built in that same time period.
Is there any requirements to show that they need financial help?
No.
So you could be a millionaire and get $35,000 grant from Midvale, but a teacher has to get a $25,000 loan for a home. I just want to see how that projects in this discussion, at least for me. Like, the problem with Midvale, Maine is it's owned by, a large percentage of the buildings are owned by one gentleman. So, like, I already don't want to give him 35 grand. He's got money.
Yeah.
So he either needs to, I find this kind of insulting, you know, to Midvale residents. Like, hey, businesses, we'll fix your buildings. If you own a home on Main maybe, or not, like, yeah, we'll give you $25,000, but you have to pay us back. Like, it's, without showing financial burden or need, I'm not even interested in this conversation. Others might be, but for me, I find this like crazy that we just went through a $25,000 thing, and we're really just to give one guy a grant.
I do think that sounds like you were saying that we are being insulting to the residents, and I hope that's not what you're saying, because what we're trying to do is implement through the rules and requirements within a CRA, which this could be allowed, and you could say you don't agree with the program, but I hope you don't think that Kate was intending to insult anyone with that.
If it's a loan, that's different. If we give them a low interest-bearing loan like we would for anything else, but like grant money, that's tax increment money that could go to citizens that we're giving to one guy that obviously has enough money to buy enough properties, that it, to me, is insulting, because we've just admitted that it's very hard to buy a home here for people that don't make very much money.
Sure.
And this guy, there's probably a couple owners, right? So I don't want to sound like I'm just picking on one, but like, I just don't get why we would not have a requirement for need like we are for housing. Like, at that point, like, don't do for the 25,000, like, I don't know. It sits so wrong with me to just give free money to a business that has the money to do it. They're just not doing it. Unless it's like some mom and pop shop that it's like, here, we own this. Like, a good example would be the theater, right? That small company that's bought the theater, they're gonna make a mixed use. That would be need, right? Like, they could be like, hey, we don't have much money, but we're providing multiple services for Midvale. There might be some housing, we might have some employees, some of actually live in Midvale, interestingly enough, even though we have like 6 employees. And then here's a hall they can rent out, right? But just to have like a blank building, so one of those landlords can be like, hey, buy this, now it looks nicer, Midvale paid for it. Like, we gotta have some sort of requirement on financial need.
Yep.
You mind if I? Yeah, so that is something, then again, this is a discussion item.
Yeah.
We're not proposing for something for you
Okay.
to approve, so we appreciate the feedback, and we can add an element or two to look into, their financials and that they demonstrate a need for it, and even like a social benefit. We have, programs where you need to provide kind of the benefit that you're bringing to Midvale. And then one element of this that I think would dissuade someone that is looking to just buy up a property and then flip it is the fact that we're requiring an easement in perpetuity on that improvement. And so I think that is something that would really dissuade a developer from utilizing this on a property that they just want to flip.
Well, they wouldn't want to, what I mean flip is find a tenant that they will make money off of and lease for a very long time. So we've put the capital up to make it more attractive, then they make money off of leasing it, where they didn't put that skin in the game. There's also homes on Main, like would a home qualify, right? Right, see, that's what.
Not for this program.
Yeah, I just.
It would for.
They also
Meg's
need to look, but one of them's free money and one of them's not.
Right.
And that's where I struggle.
What's your next slide? I mean, do you go, because there is a committee that goes and determines how these are selected. It's not like you apply, if you meet the requirements, it's a done deal. There's a selection committee that evaluates all the different components of this and makes a determination of if it's needed and if it's wanted. So there's not like, this isn't some blank, open book. Yeah, we could certainly add the financial component to it. But the other thing that you need to remember with this program, as opposed to the other one, is this program is completely set up to revitalize Main Street, a street that isn't being revitalized right now. The tax increment, the CRA was all put in place to make that revitalization happen. So I understand when you compare it to these housing things, it's total, I completely get that. We just have to put this in the perspective of what is our goals for Main Street. Maybe we need to evaluate, is our goals for Main Street not good and we should just be focusing on improving houses across the city? But I think the council has very clearly said Main Street is important to us. And yeah, I know that developers own Main Street, but the goal, the bottom line of it is we're trying to incentivize good development and make Main Street an attractive place for tenants to come in and be. And I know people are going to make money off that.
Yep.
But that's part of what we want is we want Main Street to be vital. And so you just have to kind of accept that a little bit, that allowing somebody to make an improvement to a house or to a building to get a tenant in there that revitalizes Main Street and is the type of tenant that we want in there that we can't attract right now because they come to it and they say, I don't want to be here when there's a blighted building there and there's a building that looks like the front's going to fall off right now. This is supposed to be improving that so that people want to come in. And I know it's a different thing
We should
than
just
houses.
have better code then, so they can't have buildings falling apart on Main Street, right? Like that.
You can't, you can go out and you could read every piece of literature on how to redevelop, and you can't redevelop with code. You redevelop it with incentives and money.
With giving rich people free money.
That's the way.
Yeah. And that's fine if that's the world, but that's not the world I want to live in, right? And so if it's like a low interest bearing loan for someone that doesn't show financial need, I've been on board with those things, but a grant has got to show financial need, right? Like that's tax.
And it's a 50% is the maximum amount. It's only 25. Nobody's going to revitalize their whole thing. It's an incentive to get them to do what we want them to do anyways. We're not paying for the full amount.
It's still just money.
The market isn't delivering the Main Street that we want. And so we had to put a CRA in place. We had to put all these incentives in place to make it so that we get the Main Street we want. We have a CRA that is triggering this next year, meaning we only have 15 years of tax increment to make this happen. If we sit and naturally let it happen the way that developers are happening it, we've just wasted a CRA, and we will never have a Main Street that functions the way that we want. Unfortunately, that's the way it's been for the last 20 years. That's the way it'll be for the next 20 years. We just have to do these things.
And this will fund 3 projects.
Yeah, in one
In
fiscal
each
year.
year.
Correct, yes.
So the chances of one person getting, the same owner getting 3 $35,000 grants is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
well,
you
and
look at the
that's
bottom,
one of the
you look at the
pretty
bottom
high.
line item. One of the factors is whether or not they've received, the grant already in the past or in the recent past.
But that's
so
not a no, that's just a fact.
it's a factor.
Well,
And, well, go ahead, Paul.
The other thing is, if they can redevelop it faster than, eventually, 20 years from now, they might redevelop it. If you give them an incentive to come in, redevelop it now, they get tenants in, our sales tax goes up, and we're gonna get paid for what we just did.
Again, I just have a lot of people on fixed incomes that I talk to in my neighborhood. And the idea of giving, and I know tax increment, we've had the discussion, whatever, but it's still money that we are supposed to be stewards over, that they pay taxes into. And like I said, giving free money to a handful of people that could do it on their own, right? Especially the way I view Main Street. It's not that I don't disagree with Nate in the sense that it's not happening as fast as I want, but I feel like some are just waiting for more and more and more for us to give them for free. And, without need, without some sort of repayment, it just feels like we'll put up new nice brick or stucco, and then he'll just still sit on it until, it's almost there, like we've heard. And so we've spent money hoping we'll get sales tax, while, we're making the teacher, pay us back. I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me.
With that reasoning, though, all of this development that's been done wouldn't have been done.
Right, and there's now people that have a $20,000 bill per unit over in those developments because we've gone, we'll put whatever you want in, and we're mowing the lawn for, property by Savage, which we shouldn't be doing.
Well, I'm
right?
just saying, though, that if that reasoning,
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't have been developed down there. Which maybe that's what you would like.
I just think we need to be judicial with it and make sure, we don't go, it won't happen unless X, because I don't know if that's even true. But like us maintaining a bunch of properties that Glenn tells us we shouldn't be maintaining because those developers are worth way more than our city. We rushed to that, whether we want to say that or not, because we accepted that it won't happen if we don't do this. And now we have to figure it out. And I don't necessarily, that's a tangent we don't need to go down. I just feel like this is the same sort of thing where it's like, if we don't give free money to a developer to make their building look nice, it'll never happen. Which
I don't know that saying it'll never happen. That's a long time, but how many years have we been waiting and it's not happening, and it's not happening? And you have people coming and saying, we wanted to change. So that's where Nate is saying, this is the incentive. this is the carrot to get them to do what we want. And, I see the point. I'm not saying, hey, let's make the teacher, or the firefighter, whatever, pay it back, and too bad, but we want this business to get free money. You could look at it and say, yeah, that's not real fair. But I also view them, they're independent. We formed this CRA for the purpose of revitalizing Main Street, and this is one of the programs to do it. We've got to separate those, and it is, it's kind of a leap to see if it'll pay off. As to the comment on the $20,000 a unit, I don't think that's the city's fault. That's a developer's.
No,
That's a Utah legislature issue that they need to change so that there's recourse for those homeowners.
I just view this as the old phrase, like, you don't want to see how the sausage is made. And I think that might be apt here. It might not sit well. if there's like a multimillionaire buying up properties and we're giving him or her $35,000, you know, if that's what gets them to move, then great. If not, you know, we can revisit this next year and say, hey, we gave out some money and nothing happened, and let's not give out that money again.
I'm new to this conversation, but personally for me, this what's set forward here is not surprising to me. I mean, from my understanding, the point of creating another RDA area was specifically to do this kind of thing because we weren't getting folks, even though they have money, to pull some of those triggers. I do think as we talk about the amount that we're putting towards housing, I think your points, Brian, are fair. And I also think about it's part of the way that this is set up, that when we say, I mean, legally, unless I'm wrong there, that 20% towards housing and 80% is towards things like this. So naturally, we are going to have much less funding in one of these project areas to put towards housing than we are to spark the redevelopment like this is going towards. So it makes, even though I see the point that it's frustrating, and I agree with your comments about being judicial, and I've got mixed feelings on the loan versus grant, but frankly, just knowing that 80-20 split that exists in these, I'm not surprised to see that kind of difference in the funding.
And, you know, there are some developers on Main Street. It's not entirely fair to lump everyone together as like these super wealthy folks. I mean, obviously, if you can buy a storefront property on Main Street, you know, you're probably not hurting, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in the bank. For instance, Jeff Beck, who owns the old Mint building, I doubt he's making any money off that building right now. In fact, it's like, you know, in very much disrepair. So if this would be something that would spark that project to continue at a faster pace, great. But, you know, I don't think he's sitting on it now making $1 from it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't look at someone's net worth on a property by property basis, but, and I agree that there's probably some people that own some property there that are not. And that's why I would like to look at a need base first, right? Because, you know, if you own 20 of the lots there or whatever, 5 or 6 or 7, I mean, you've made a choice to sit on them and hold them and waiting for a payout. And that shouldn't include Midvale paying you out, right? But if you've got a business there and you're trying to make it work and you're committed to Midvale, you know, I can see that. Like I said, there's plenty of that there, but it needs to be in the criteria, in my opinion, that there needs to be a need. Okay. And not just a desire by them to take the money for free.
Yeah.
And let me just add, we can certainly add in any of those things. There's things that we could even add in terms of that you need to have tenants in there so that you can't make an improvement and not bring tenants in. There's a lot of different things we could work into that criteria. The reason that we brought this program out now was because there are several business owners, including the theater, that do want to do a lot, but they have that need and they're right up against that limit right now, where we have these people that completely believe in the street and they want to do these things like put a new facade on that theater. I don't know if you've noticed it, but they pulled the old sign down because they're dying to get that new one up, but they're struggling with how much it costs. There's another business right down the street that has been vacant for at least as long as I've been here, probably 5 years. A new tenant has gone in there. They've put everything that they have into those tenant improvements. They know the facade isn't attractive, and so this is a perfect program for us to go to them and say, just this little amount is going to help them a tremendous amount to make the facade of that building more attractive. So I think that hits the points that you're talking about, and we could work that into the criteria even more, which is why we're having this discussion.
I guess it wouldn't be bad for me generally is if there was a requirement, if they didn't have tenants within like a certain time period, they have to repay it all back, right? Because then we're not recapturing tax dollars, right?
Right.
So no matter what, if they have a tenant within 12 months, then it could be a grant. But otherwise, they got to pay it back, because that's what I'm worried about, is a certain individual has nice looking buildings, but still just waiting,
Yeah.
You know, he
We
comes in and
understand
says the
that.
same thing. It's almost there, we're waiting, and I hate, it's frustrating. I don't think that's our fault.
Yeah.
That's the most frustrating thing, you know, from
Yeah.
us on an RDA standpoint, where we're trying to generate tax increment. Exactly what you described is the most frustrating thing for us. I mean, that's the thing that makes it so a CRA doesn't work, is people sitting on property. So, I mean, you're right on point, and I think we can design this to match that.
Another really appealing aspect of this program is the lien in perpetuity. So let's say the owner of the Vincent Drug owns a lot of properties.
Yeah.
But I would love if this program were to, say, give that developer $20,000 to help restore the Vincent sign, and then we have a lien on it and we own that sign forever. And I think that that's a great use of $20,000.
So conceptually, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Because then, if they want to remove the sign, we can actually
Yes.
take it, or tell them no.
We say no, that has to stay up.
Yeah, or even move it and put it in the museum next to the hair necklace.
Sure.
But I just try to bring it up every meeting. But like, if we put like new brick up, you know, obviously that, it's not like we wanted.
That's different.
Yeah, we will take the brick. Like, you know, like that wouldn't work, you know. So I guess, so if they wanted to remove it or change it, would they pay us back? Like, how does that lien work?
It's a lien on the facade, not the material. So I mean,
Right.
you basically have a perpetual say in how that building looks.
So if they wanted us to not, they would have to pay us back.
They would either have to pay us back, or they would have to negotiate with
release.
us what it is that they're putting up. I mean, it could be, I mean, Kate and I were talking about this earlier. They could come in 10 years later with a new tenant and actually propose a facade that we like even more. In that situation, we would say, okay, yeah, we'll renegotiate this facade agreement because you want to improve it even more. But it just gives the city that one say in, before this building is torn down. The other way that you protect them is with historic designation. It's just none of our buildings are on Main Street or have that historic designation. As soon as you do that, the cost to renovate them goes so far up that it never gets done. So we, as much as we love that they're historic, we want to find another way to keep them looking historic without designating. And this facade, or this easement, does that to a great extent.
Thank you. And I don't mean to come down hard. I just want to make sure we're not giving people that are considerably wealthier than most of Midvale something for nothing in return for Midvale.
Oh, and I understand, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're asking these questions and challenging kind of like the notion that we've always kind of had when it comes to redevelopment areas. And I think it's helpful that by you asking those questions, we're kind of talking about why we do the things that we do, and it educates everyone on the tools that we have at our hands and our limits as well, so.
We appreciate all of the hard work that you guys put into this. I don't want you guys to think that any of our questioning is geared
No,
towards
not at all.
any of your efforts.
So just, in order to make sure that we're giving, excuse me, the proper guidance to Kate in redrafting this, we've heard several different sort of recommendations on how to modify the program. Need is the only one that's coming to me right offhand.
If there's not a need, they got to have a tenant within a reasonable time period that you could pick, 12 or 18 months. Otherwise, it's a repayment. Because the whole concept to me, I get what Councilman Glover said, but if it just sits for 10 years with it.
Yeah, we want it developed,
Yeah, but if we just put a facade and they don't,
then it's not accomplishing what we.
and we've lost money on that.
So
right?
there's those two. What other?
I'm fine with those two.
What were the two?
Those were the only two that I really.
And it could be an or, it could be an or in my opinion.
Can you
right?
say
Like
can you
need
say them
or you have a tenant within a stated time period, so we can show a financial response. Because I would like to say to citizens, tax money is going out for people that either desperately need it, or we can show a return on investment within a reasonable time period. And that should be like sort of a guiding principle generally, because that's easier for, and that means the developers that are worth a lot still could get it if they can, you know, just get people in those properties that they haven't had people in forever.
What do you think is the appropriate time frame? So if you say, hey, you're a mega millionaire, we'll give you this money if you have a tenant within blank, 6 months,
Well, that's
It's hard to
12
be taught
months.
to do that because our building time is so limited.
Mhm.
So I would say probably a year because.
or 18 months.
Depending on
Yeah.
when they go into it, they could be held up for half that or more for bad weather.
And then does
Or
that
from
year,
completion.
Yeah.
does the
Right.
12 months start at what
Completion.
point, the completion of the project?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And then if they don't meet that in 12 months, then they pay it all back. And I think that's more than fair.
And just, I'm going to say something that I don't want to start another thing, but the reason that we have the funding to put into the home repair program and the down payment assistance program, that money has all come from RDAs and CDAs that have worked. So when you get into that, why are we spending tax money on this and not more on that? The truth is because we've been successful at redevelopment, that's earmarked 20% is why we're even able to do those other programs. Otherwise, there would be no funding for any of it.
That's, the only reason I brought it up is because we talked about them both today. I understand they're different programs, there's different whatever, but if we had a crowd, if this room was full, we had a bunch of citizens and they just saw us negotiate who gets $25,000 opposed to 20 in the loan format, and then waited an hour and saw us be like, here's free money to make your building look pretty, like, they would all have been frustrated. Because they're like, I'm a teacher, I don't make any money, and how do I get that sweet RDA funds, right? So it's not that I don't understand what you're saying, and I only brought it up because it was a good imagery at this point. But it just, if we're spending money, that's great, but we just need to make sure we have principles to stand on that we could tell our citizens, hey, we're not only doing it to make Midvale look better, but we're being thoughtful about it as far as need, and if they don't do it, we're getting our money back so we can then give it to a different person, like, instead of just like, yeah, we're gonna do this and then not. Which I'm not even suggesting that's necessarily what you're gonna do, but I wanna make sure it's outlined clearly, going forward.
I know you spent a lot of time on this. I really want to see the next slide.
I'll go back
There
with
we
you.
I have one more thing to add, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Which is not to this point specifically, but I do, before we move on to this, I do really want to make this point. Nate, I want to thank you for advocating for this so strongly a minute ago. Bryant, love you. You can be very intense. And as I've engaged with senior staff, I've really tried, I feel like probably every senior staff member, I've said something along to the lines of them of, I want you to tell us in the council what you are thinking, because it's really important. And truly the response that I'm given is, yeah, we get that, but they can fire us. And we don't want, I can't piss off somebody because you can fire me. And so I do think that sometimes there is a hesitancy to really engage on some of this and for staff to step up and really advocate. And I think Nate just did a great job at that. Brian, I think your comments and him advocating got us to a better place. And I hope that as staff come to us and really advocate for what they're working on, that we provide that space for them to be able to do that, because I think it's really important, and I think that I just saw a great example of that. And so just, again, Brian, really appreciate, Councilmember Brown, I'm being so bad tonight, really appreciate your comments, and Nate, thank you for stepping into that. Thank you to Kate and Cody also.
I want to just go on record that I've never thought about firing anyone. Despite what the mayor just said, I just have a personality that I feel like it was constructive opposed to just guessing what we were all thinking. So just take that for what it's worth. It's not meant, I don't want anyone to think that their job is in jeopardy because I just very much care about Midvale.
Okay.
Except for mayor, maybe we'll fire him.
That's all I had. I just thought it was really important because I liked what I just saw. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so just a quick run through on how it would work. The applicant would submit an application that would have a written description of the proposed improvements, including all the materials and the color schemes. They would also provide supporting documentation as to why they qualify. After a staff review, the eligible applicants will be passed along to the Main Street Facade Improvement Advisory Board, which would include an RDA board member. They will take a look at the amount of money that they are requesting, what they're proposing, and from there, they will make a determination on how much money they actually want to fund. And that recommendation will be passed on to the agency board, and you guys will make the final approval. The applicants would then enter a grant and easement agreement. That easement would be filed with the recorder's office, and then upon completion of the improvements, all the work that was approved under the scope of work will be reimbursed up until the approved grant amount.
That was worth the wait.
Yeah, it was great, wasn't it?
Thank you.
And then the selection criteria minus the things that we've now discussed would include the level of private investment utilized for the renovation, whether or not they are providing more than a 50% match. In looking at how much funding we provide, we'll look at the potential impact the project would have on the surrounding area, if it provides visual prominence or significance, whether or not the improvements would restore or provide an enhanced historical or artistic character, and then the building's level of blight, whether or not the building's abandoned, and whether or not the applicant has been awarded facade grants in the recent past. And then the slide for feedback. If you have anything else, I'm happy to hear them.
I don't have any thoughts on this idea at all. I think it's great.
After seeing that, I mean, I'm going with Councilmember Gettle's, what is it called, a bulb, what is it?
Bulb out?
Bulb out.
Yeah, why is it called that? Because we got a little picture there.
We can call it a bump out.
Bump out?
That
Yeah.
makes more sense.
You
I mean,
can-
I don't get the bulb.
You call it a bump out, and then we're sticking with facade. Okay, that's the compromise.
Potato, potato, we can just, yeah.
Facade. Little did I know when you said facade how that was going to turn out.
As long as every person that applies, that they refer to it that way.
That's right.
We can
You let
put
them
that,
know.
we can put that in the agreement.
Well, you better, else the mayor may push to get some of you fired if you say that. So. No, he didn't say that, and we don't. I appreciate what you said too, Mayor. I mean, going back to that, I haven't ever thought of, saying we're getting rid of somebody because they're passionate about their job and wanting to share their opinion. That's what we want. We want to hear why you're doing it all day, why you have that position, and why you believe in it. So.
Well, I know personally I appreciate the love that you guys have for the city that you guys are in. So, I mean, I completely understand and respect you all. So, thank you.
Any other questions, comments for Kate? Okay.
We've had quite the
One more.
kumbaya. Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please
Yes.
say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
We gotta get you a hat made. Like something, Covfifes and Parquets or something.
Mayor, I would much rather.
It's always the ones that I think are going to be quick.
Very
Turn out not to be so.